I promise it's not the same car. Yeah, the color is similar, but it's not the same car. Okay, you're catching us in the middle of a disagreement. He firmly believes that we have already shot this car, even down to the color. And technically, that may be true, because it is a Genesis G90 and we shot it in Canada. However, this one is not fitted with the twin-turbo V6. This one is fitted with a 5-liter V8. And so today, and this is what I'm trying to tell him, our job is to separate, or really unpack the difference between the V6 2 turbos and the V8. And to start that off, we need to see what's underneath the hood here. And that is a 5-liter V8. Now this is the Hyundai Tao V8. And if I'm being completely honest, this thing is of like drinking age. It's that old. Still, it puts out 420 horsepower, comes in a relatively aggressive 6,000 RPM, 383 pound-feet of torque, comes in also somewhat aggressive at 5,000 RPM. But here's the catch. Now this and the V6 with 2 turbos are attached to the same 8-speed automatic. See, he doesn't get excited about the transmission. It's attached to the same transmission, but that V6 is only down 55 horsepower on this, but more importantly, it's only down 7 pound-feet of torque, and at that, the torque in that one comes in at a stupidly low, like 1,300 RPM, stays flat all the way to 5,000. So how does that impact the drivability of this in the places that people would drive this? Okay, so for pulling power, I think we need to try something different. Get on the freeway, put our foot into this thing in town, because frankly, this is where you're going to drive a car like this. Even though it's very fancy, this is where you're going to do it. And I gotta come off the gas because it's a little bit quicker than I expected there, because I wanted to talk a little bit first. So this is the 90 freeway in the west side of Los Angeles. As you saw, I went from a fully legal speed getting on an on-ramp to way illegal, I'm not telling you how fast I went, pretty quickly. Now the thing I want to point out here is this is not a discernible difference between the V6 twin turbo and this. Yes, this is faster. To you and I, car guys and gals, we would notice this one is faster. But if you put the average, like, Korean drug lord, the average person who would buy or lease a car like this, sadly they're trying to lease a lot of these things, they wouldn't notice a difference between a V6 and a V8 if you were to blindfold them before they got in the car, took the blindfold off, and then let them drive the car. They'd be like, oh, yeah, they're about the same. So that's really the conundrum of this V8. It's good, it's quick, but it's not that much better than the V6. So someone's having a very big day today because he never gets to go inside the cars, because let's just say he's a bit of a mess. But making an exception today to demonstrate the reason for being for the Genesis G90, specifically the 5-liter Ultimate model. Now, what the engine has to do with the rear seating package, I have no idea. But if you remember in the V6 model we drove up in Canada, that wasn't fitted with the adjustable seats in the rear. Here it is, and you can adjust the front seat here so you can get some more leg room. Even this seat back can go forward. But the piece de resistance, and he is kind of sitting on the controller here, so excuse me as I move his butt a little bit. Check this out. Isn't that cool? See, he's not impressed. Not impressed. Me, I'm impressed. And it even has like a little recline back there and massage, which something tells me, you want a massage? I don't think he wants the massage. But over here, I can move my seat more, and I can get a massage. Wait a minute. You guys can't see me because there's a 65-pound dog between the two of us. So I'll tell you what, I'm going to chill over here, and you guys, you can talk to Kumo. So in our continuing theme of trying something different for this episode, and coupled with the fact that we already drove this on some very nice roads up in Western Canada, welcome to the Venice Canals Historic District of Venice, California. So let's try a 124-inch wheelbase, 24.4-inch wheelbase on very tight streets. And actually, these are our neighbors here. That's Linda and that's Ron. So you guys might know of Ron because Ron was the one that wrote Alien, Minority Report, and Total Recall, the originals of all of those. So the man, a creative genius. Actually, as you can tell, this was If you followed the show for a while, you know that I lived here for many years, 10 years. I lived just down there. Beautiful little area. But this is a great place to take such a large vehicle and try it on small streets. And this is what I feel is what makes this car stand out. So there's a couple things going on here. Number one, we already talked about 124.4. So here's a very tight road, a bridge. I've got people here. I got a actually very attractive woman here, but I don't want to hit them. Now in a big car like a 7 Series or an S-Class, that's a lot to maneuver around. This is only, what, 2 inches shorter than that BMW, and it still is a sizable vehicle. What is it, 4,900 pounds in all-wheel drive, 4,751 in this two-wheel drive V8. So, okay, we got a tight road there. Let's make it even harder. Let's go to a tighter alley, cut through here. Please don't try this at home. I'm gonna pick up the speed a little bit. Notice it's a garbage day out here. And it's amazing how maneuverable such a big vehicle is in such tight streets. So the main point why I wanted to bring this and you guys here is to demonstrate one of the competitive advantages of this thing. Yes, it's big, it's very floaty. It doesn't compete with a 7 Series or an S-Class going around corners. But the fact that Hyundai makes its own steel, they can afford to put more expensive steel throughout the construction. So if we talked about in the tech review, 52% of this thing is made out of high-strength steel, which is A, more expensive, but B, generally lighter than the comparable steel vehicle. So would I say it's as strong or as rigid as that i8 we drove? Nowhere even close. It's not as technical as that. Granted, that car is more than twice the price of this thing. But on the spectrum of rigidity of a sedan like this, 124 to say 126 inch like the 7 Series, I would put the 7 Series way at the top, because remember, it's made out of that carbon core, which comes from that knowledge that they got from Lake Moses, Washington. But then the S-Class, I'd say, is kind of down here. Not that it's a bad vehicle, it's just not as stiff because it doesn't have such high tech in its construction. Here, this is middle of the road. And because of that middle of the road, combined with the competitive advantage of having their own high-strength steel factory, it's more maneuverable around places like this. And frankly, that's where I feel most people who buy these things are going to take it. Yeah. So upon reflection, I think I'm going to give up this whole Pelican trick, at least while we're in LA, because if you couldn't tell via the last couple of experiments, there's no way I'm going to win this argument. That said, he could definitely have a party back here. So let's make our way out of town and cover a couple of important notes. First is the obvious, and that is the fuel economy. Best I've been doing driving around town is 15 mpg, and what's interesting, it doesn't make a difference whether I'm out here or driving on that freeway. I'm still getting about 15. My guess is if I was driving on that freeway for like a whole tank, probably would go over 20. The second is there are drive modes on offer. Right now I'm on the smart drive mode, but let's switch this over to sport, see if it makes a difference on this turn here. Not, I mean, it's a little bit, but again, this is not the car you're going to take to roads like this. What you do notice first and foremost is the steering. It gets a lot more weighty. There's some heft to it. That's, I'd say, the biggest difference between sport and the regular smart mode. There's an eco mode as well. What's interesting, this one is two-wheel drive, but if this was fitted with all-wheel drive, which adds, I want to say, about another 120, 130 pounds, what that does is it enables you to program how much power you want going to the back wheels or the front wheels. So like, for example, in sport, in an all-wheel drive, it'd be 90-10, but then eco, that's interesting, it goes 100% all the way in the back when you want the highest fuel economy. And then it goes up to 60 in the back, 40 in the front. And then last but not least, I feel like I have to bring this up, there are stabilizer bars here. It's 25 mils in the front and 17 mils in the back. Go figure. Yes, that is an entirely good point. So there is one more differentiation in a G90 fitted with a V6 as opposed to one like this fitted with a V8, and that is the front brakes. The diameter of the front rotors is 14.3 in a V6, this one 14.8. Now that we've unpacked all of that, and I would argue much more importantly, we have driven a G90 in more real-world scenarios than we did in Canada. Still, an incredible competitor in a segment of cars that, let's say, is 124.4-inch wheelbase and higher, because this is the shortest wheelbase out of all of them. But here's the thing that I just can't get away from. The V6, yes, down on power, and really not a huge delta in torque. I would argue it is better suited to this vehicle, to the point where I couldn't justify the extra for the V8. Which brings us to a very important question. And the question is this. This is, we were going over this last night, this is about a $30,000 discount over an S-Class, maybe 20 over a 7 Series similarly equipped. So would you pay extra for a much more modern, high-feature V8, or is the V6 enough? And don't just say yes or no. I want to know why or why not, and most importantly, do you own a vehicle like this? It doesn't have to be a Genesis or an Equus or something like that. It could be an S-Class or a 7 Series. Let me know which one of those you drive. Let us know in the comments below or via our social media, MotoManTV all in word, MotoManTV all in word, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And with that, I want to leave you with two things. Number one, please unsubscribe and then resubscribe and then click notifications. This is how much YouTube has screwed up the platform for all YouTubers, big and small, no matter the genre. And number two, I want to leave you with a fun fact, and it's unusual, this one. I don't know if you've noticed throughout this episode, he and I have been under siege from these small, like, gnat, bug thing. I mean, they're all over us. It's hard for me to even deliver for more than 10 seconds without being eaten alive. So, I don't know what it is. It's the car, the color. It's the fact that I'm wearing real pants. Okay, until we see you next time when I'm wearing jeans again, we don't get eaten alive. Bis später.